Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And this episode is brought to you by Pocket Jack Comics, which has a Kickstarter right now, and they're offering a fun, sexy, limited edition swimsuit cover, only limited to 100. So it's super limited. They're up in about 2.5 hours. So I definitely recommend you going to check it out if that's something that you're interested in. And maybe if they don't all sell out, they'll appear through Preston, or you could ask him for a copy at pocketjackcomics.com. But enough about that, because I have with me board game and comic creator Chris Brown. So welcome back to the show, man.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm pretty happy. I'm feeling very Taylor Swift lately, but that's not the point here. That's not the point, because we're talking about you, and you got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. And I think the best place to start is with a quick introduction of who you are, because obviously you are Laughing Rogue Studios, Laughing Rogue Game Designs, obviously comic oriented, and there are people hearing about you for the first time. So, basic idea of who you are before we get into what you kind of got going on.
Sure. I'm a board game designer, comic book maker, author, and so on that tries to create as many immersive worlds for you to play in as possible.
Yeah, and then I just want to dive a little further into this, because obviously some of the games you've developed is Gone Hunting, Gods of
hmm
Metal. I think you've done some other things with Slaughterville. I think you've done a few other things as well. And so obviously Slaughterville is kind of your baby. And then you did Slaughterville 1, the expansion pack, which is 2. I think you did a third expansion pack as well. And then you did the Ultimate Edition. And I think you also did an RPG of
Yep.
Welcome to Slaughterville, which kind of follows the same premise with a few rules in there, but doesn't is more dice rolling kind of D&D style. So
hmm
obviously you've done a bunch of different stuff in that regard, and that's kind of where I want to talk a little bit about, is that what is Slaughterville, because that's where your Kickstarter on the comic side is at right now.
Right. Slaughterville is your favorite town of fun and horror that allows you to experience all different types of. If you're looking at the board game, you can play all different types of games in one box. Um, but you go through this town where every horror movie takes place, and do your best to survive. Like we said with the board game, you're going up against one of our 23 different villains. Or if you take the RPG, the world is wide open for you. And the comics are my story of what would happen if I were in the game.
So let's actually talk about this, because obviously you started off with the game side, and then you
hmm
did Slaughterville 1, and then that kind of funded, I think, on Kickstarter, or I don't know if you funded the first one on Kickstarter actually. But I think you did really well with a bunch of them, and then obviously it's just expanded from there. And what is this like? Because obviously when you have a few villains in the first edition, then you go through an expansion, you had 3 or 4 or 6 more, and then the third one you get up to 23 or 20, and then in the ultimate you get up to 23 villains. There's a lot of replayability in these games. And what is that like? Because I think that's a real issue of being able to stack games up on top of each other, and also creating an experience where it doesn't get boring after the 17th time playing.
Uh yeah, that was kind of difficult, just to make each of these different villains and things feel unique, or to make this world where I what I do in here is I look forward to you telling your story. So when you play the game, I want you to tell me how this stoner went to the haunted asylum, met the crazy doctor, survived a set of um, defibrillator paddles to the chest, and made it out alive, or didn't. That's one of the reasons why I made it. Is I like to hear the stories of things that happen. It's like all your favorite B horror movies in one setting.
And then obviously, I mean, the game, for those, because I've played the game, if you die, you just come back as a new character,
Yep.
and the story continues. You don't really lose much. I mean, you might lose an item here or there. But you don't lose anything major, and the story continues. And there's another aspect that I like, where the game can beat you. And that's a
Mm,
nice component as well, where you all can lose collectively together. And so that's something that I think is cool too. And the reason why I bring all this up is that the games came first.
Yes.
And obviously you have transitioned, or not transitioned, but expanded out from the games into the RPG, and then obviously doing the comic stuff. And
Mhm.
so what prompted that? Because that's a whole different sector. You know, board games and comics are second or third cousins in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Yeah, of course, I've always loved reading the comic books. God, since late '70s, early '80s, kind of a thing. And that's 1980s for those that don't remember that era. Uh, and what I wanted to do is, like I said, I made the board game for you to tell your own story. I wanted the comic book to be what would happen, or what is my story for the town. In fact, somebody asked me today if I would let them do videos like B movie vignette kind of videos of the thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I did this for. Go nuts. Let me see it. Show it to me. I'll share it. But that, and then the RPG is I wanted to give you the same world, but not limited by the boards. You're not limited by the cards you overturn. You have the entire world to play in.
So let's actually really talk about the comic stuff, because that's really what I think is interesting. Because you and me have gone through the board games, we've gone through a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, we spoke about volumes one and volumes two, and I do want to talk about this volume because what I think is interesting is that you're on your third volume, and each of these graphic novels is dealing, or mini graphic novels, I think there's 64, 68 pages, is
Mhm.
dealing with a new villain. And it's interesting because it's your story, it's your characters that you pick that are dealing with this villain, but this villain obviously has ties to the game. And it's almost like you're rolling the whole game and yourself and telling it, but it's also very narrative. And so, what is that like? Because obviously, there's cross reference, but then there's also other things that happen that you can do in a comic book that you can't do in a board game. And
Absolutely.
so, it's very interesting in that regard because similar but very different.
Right. It really was kind of freeing to be able to tell the story this way. And like what I will do is if I know I'm going to be using certain locations that are in the board game, like the forest, I will set the cards here for the forest and I'll pick five or six and like, okay, how can these fit in the story so that the people that play the board game get the reference, and it also helps make the book a little more exciting as well because well now you have this reference to the game, and it creates that link, that callback, if you will.
So let's actually talk about this when you're writing this and you're even doing that, because it is a real advantage, I would imagine, that you have a board game and that you have a world and you have a very visual board of what you're doing, and you could technically roll and see what happens. And obviously you're not rolling a dice, and there's certain parameters that you have in a comic book, and a comic has to be more narrative than the board game, but you can actually visualize saying, cool, we have forest, and so it can find this item, and this item in the forest. And do they find it, or did they miss it? Or what does that look like? Because, and I don't think I've told this story, but I used to bake, and I used to, for my friends, what I did is I made cupcake Catan. So what did I do is I set up Catan, and then I built my cupcakes and iced them around that theory so that I understood where the settlements were going. And so I had a board of Catan on one side and I had the cupcakes on the other, and it was almost like a physical model. And
Mhm.
that's what I think is so interesting about this book, and even volume one and two, is that you actually have a physical model
Yeah,
involved with it.
yeah, it's not 100% that you need the game, but you'll get the references if you've played it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's a fact. But I was even just thinking about it, even just as a writing tool, because sometimes you can
Big.
visualize something.
Mhm.
So as an interviewer, I've been doing this so long that I can visualize and interpret and understand how an interview is going to go when I ask certain questions, and that's a real skill. And I feel that with certain people in their writing, is that some people understand the visualization and others don't. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's so cool about this, is that you actually have a way that you can play out an idea. And that's what's cool. It's almost like you're in a boardroom, in a writer's room, without
Yeah.
having to have a writer.
Yeah, it's like having the storyboards along with you. And if you ever get writer's block with it, I mean, okay, I'm not sure where I want to take this exactly. Well, what do the cards say we do? You can you can work on it that way. So it really does help with making it a little bit more immersive and connected.
And then I want to slightly back out of the board side. I really do want to talk about the comic stuff because I think that's also interesting because again, it is narrative comics because this is
Hmm.
your story. And what is that like? Because when I think you and me have played online a little bit of Welcome to Slaughterville, I've obviously played with my friends, and you can go in 15 directions, and it's a very chaotic game for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, or it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. And so what is that like for you though? Because you can't have a chaotic comic book. And so unchaotic and you could have mystery and doubt and things like that. But what is that like to sort of I don't want to say take it down a notch, but simplify it to some degree.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more focused. Um, because like you said, you can walk to any of the different locations you want and you can encounter and explore it in the game. But here, you're following because I created the two new characters of John and Beth when I started this, and you're following their story as they go through first entering the town and then everything that happens with the beast within, the werewolf, then book two is the slasher. Now we're doing the cannibal rednecks. Next up is the ancient burial ground. I think we have like 23, 24 of these things planned out. So it's going to go for a little while.
So let's even talk about that too, because obviously John and Beth are obviously I don't think they reset between graphic novels. So they just dealt with the Beast Within. They just dealt with the werewolf, and now they're dealing with cannibal rednecks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then they're going to deal with the ancient burial ground, which is probably a mummy or something similar to that. So clearly, they're gaining experience, and so
Mm-hmm.
you need to figure out your character development too. But it's also they're going into this new territory and that new territory, and then what happened in the Beast Within that affects them in this regard. And that's kind of a interesting position, I think, to be in because it's kind of like, okay, like what did they learn from X? And even if you go back to the game, if you play it the third, second, fourth time, clearly you don't have any special abilities on the fourth time playing it, but you do
Mm-hmm.
have knowledge of how to play it and what strategies to employ. So it's so interesting because there's so many parallels.
Yeah, it definitely there's a lot of lasting consequences, just like if you were playing the game itself. Um, for instance, if you were I don't they tell me I'm really bad at this because I want to spoil the whole book, and I do. Um, but I can't do that. So but there are things in this, especially in this third volume, that change the world greatly. I'm going to put it that way. Change the way that everything is going on. That's where I can leave it without spoiling. I'm horrible at it. I know.
I'm not going to push too hard, but
Yeah,
it's
but
this
if you read the end of book one, you know what happens, and then again, that thing is lasting. There is no reset with this. There's no respawn.
guys.
Wait,
If you don't want it to be ruined, just pause for 30 seconds, cover your ears.
yeah.
Dumbledore dies. I'm sorry. Um,
Snape
so
kills
he
Dumbledore.
dies, guys. He dies. And Malfoy took the most powerful wand, and then Harry
Right.
disarmed Malfoy. I'm sorry if I ruined Harry Potter.
It's
Um,
yeah.
Snape, Snape,
It's
Snape,
Star
Snape.
it's Star Wars with sticks. That's what it is. Okay.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's
But
damn true.
speak, speak, speaking of Kurt Angle, that's a different story. We'll get into that later. I'm sorry. I don't want to get off
dun,
it.
dun, 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 dun. I got 3 eyes.
So,
3 eyes, guys. Yeah. We could
but
talk
what
about
I
Iowa, but I figured that that's a very different conversation. But getting back to Slaughterville here, because this is where it's interesting because I don't know how you interpret these graphic novels. Are they
Mhm.
all the same game or the equivalent of the same game, or is it a stacked up relevance of a game? Because the way I view it is that if I play round one with Slaughterville and me and my friends get together on Friday night and then we end the game, the next time we play, it's a brand new game. It's not a
Right.
continuation. And so I don't know if graphic novel one is a continuation into two, or if there's consequences from one that shifted the world, but two is kind of a stacked up game because it's interesting when you go into things like this. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, maybe I'm off base, but because you could, I don't know, because you could read one and two in that way.
Yeah.
I
No,
feel
they completely depend on each other. Same thing with 3, 4, all the way out through. There is an overarching narrative that's going on. Um, there's players introduced, major players introduced, um, that especially in 3 that are going to have an impact going forward. I would see when I write it, I write like a movie. Like I'm sitting and I'm watching a movie. This is what's happening. This is what I see happening. This is what the characters are telling me is happening. And that's how I do dialogue is I listen to what they actually say. I know it sounds like I'm psychotic, but I am. And but there is something in book 3 that I did that felt like it had to happen. And it was based on the other 2 books. So yes, everything is building from one to the other. And I really think
let's
I
start
know
with
you're gonna. I don't think you're gonna like it. I know you're gonna like it. You
so
might hate
let's
me, but you'll like it.
well, we all know what happens. They decide that they want to raise starring in your movie. That's
Taylor
really what
Swift,
happens.
Taylor Swift comes in, marries the Cannibal Rednecks, and we go from there.
I mean, her and Travis Kelsey. I mean, I'm rooting for both of them. So if he wins another one, she's gonna come out to the center of the field and he's gonna propose to her by giving him one of his rings. And then
You
he's
know.
gonna say, we're doing two things at once.
Mhm. But will it if she gets married and it goes well, will that end her singing career?
At the Super Bowl, of course.
I just mean because she only writes songs about breakups. And if she doesn't break up with him, will she have any more songs to write? Hmm.
She'll create a song called Touchdown. She'll create
Touchdown.
a song. Yeah, she'll create a song called Touchback. She'll create a song called Wide Receiver. The whole playbook. The whole
Yep.
playbook. And then fast forward 25 years later, the Chiefs playbook will come out and it'll be every song will be titled after the Chiefs playbook. It'll be great. It'll be but I actually do want to get away from Taylor Swift. As much as I love
Sure, sure,
Taylor
sure.
Swift, I'm a big Swiftie, and I have no shame admitting that. I'm
I have
also a
Kelsey
big
cards.
yeah, I have Taylor Swift cards. So then we're perfect. We'll trade. We'll put them next to
Yes.
each other. And we'll see what
You know,
happens. Oh man, I almost bought a $1,500 Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift card.
ouch. I don't
Oh,
think I
look, there's only like 11 of them in the world. I think it would have been worth it. I was tempted. And I would have kept it for myself. And they go for a lot of money, but not the point here. We're not talking about that. Stay
right,
on
right.
topic, Chris. Stay on
I'm
topic.
sorry. I'm like a squirrel sometimes. Leave me up.
We have to focus here. We really need you to focus, Michael Bolton. We really need you to focus here. But anyway, no. Getting back to your comic. What is that like? Because I feel, and this is how I feel, is that you do a comic and there's no consequence in your book, or there's
Yeah.
minimal consequence. And like, look, certain books don't need consequences, right? I'm a huge WWE Boom Studios fan. Those books don't need major consequences in them. It's 6 issues. In issue 1 to 6, there's a conflict, and the conflict gets relatively resolved in 6 issues. They're fun, right? I'm not looking for a massive solution to a problem. I'm looking to Dean Ambrose trying to pin Seth Rollins in the comic book. That's what I'm looking for. That's the conflict, okay? But that's what I'm paying for. That's what I'm expecting. But going into your book, at a certain point in issue 1 or volume 1, you don't need a massive parameter conflict, but now we're going to get a parameter shift. Or we're
Right.
going to shift it down a gear. What is that like? Because there has to be something that says, okay, we're now not in Kansas anymore.
Thank you. That is exactly the way I wanted it to come across. I mean, you couldn't have said it more perfectly. I couldn't get the words out. You got it. But before I say, you need to promise me you're going to check out Chaos Comics WWE books, like the Stone Cold, the Mankind, and the Undertaker ones, and the
Are
Rock one is hilarious.
are they older?
They're
They're older, right?
in the 90s, but you will love them. I promise. But anyway, yes, absolutely. When we first meet Beth and John in the first book, the first page, I kill Beth's little sister. She was like 4 or 5 when they were playing in the woods. The werewolf kills her. And that causes Beth to be like, I got to get out of this place. So once Beth is old enough, she leaves. She bounces. Years later, Beth's older sister, Caroline, ends up getting lost in those same woods. So that brings the initial conflict of, why am I coming back here? Well, Beth wants to find her sister, maybe get some redemption, that kind of a thing. So when she comes back into town with her fiance, John, he's a police officer, by the way, it allows them to rediscover the world of Slaughterville. And then it allows the readers to rediscover it as well. They get to see the little oddities that go on with it. Like we were talking about before, where if the people in town don't notice that anything's going on, like if they don't notice that it's a werewolf, they just see everybody disappearing and missing as if those people were never there in the first place. If your auto body shop suddenly turns into a museum, well, to the town people that are not aware, it's always been a museum. It's never been anything else. And that's the beauty of the place. That's why you're able to tell any story you want. And so they allow the readers to see these strange things as they're happening in the town. Now, more of that is going to come into play in the future books, because, well, want to introduce them slowly. I say slowly through like 60-page books, right? But as these characters are experiencing what they're, and I know you've read book 1, so you know what happens at the end.
Dumbledore dies.
Dumbledore dies. Thank you. Yeah, you got to keep doing that, Tamara. I'm going to say something. I shouldn't. But that leads.
You can ruin book 1, because at this point we're on book 3. So there's nothing wrong with ruining what happens in book 1, because it's been fair game. Now you don't have to, because maybe people want to read it. I understand. Maybe we should keep it somewhat tidied up. But the point is that if it slips out, that's not a problem. If you ruin book 2, fair enough. I'll surrender the point. But if you ruin book 2, I would say, wait a second, let's not go down that route, because book 2 is newer. But the reason why I bring this up is that there does need to be a shift that happens at a certain point. In an interview, I'm going for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe. There's no conflict in an interview that happens, right? But like you're playing a video game, right? So one of my favorite games is Resident Evil 4. There are paradigm shifts, for lack of a better word, in the game. Ashley gets kidnapped. You're going to deal with that. The village fights a bit of a shift where, cool, this is what's going on. But then you're dealing with Altagantes, and you're dealing with other weird creatures and big bosses. And like, okay, now we're not in this anymore. And then there's some pretty big shifts in Resident Evil 4. The reason why I dropped Resident Evil 4, that came out in 2004. We're talking about almost 20 years ago. So we just made a remake of the game. So if you haven't played it, I think it's fair. I think it's fair game to say, look, there's certain events that happen in that game that say, okay, we're now in a serious problem. That first village fight, when you have no ammo, you have legitly 30 bullets and a handgun, a 9mm handgun, and you got to kill 35 villagers and a chainsaw man. We're in a very different environment now.
Yeah.
and it happens relatively quickly.
Right.
So, but I digress.
And that's the same kind of thing too. He came into that village completely unaware of what he was going to experience. When they came into town, when they came into Slaughterville, they didn't. Beth kind of had an idea that something weird happens, but she's been away for so long, she thought maybe she was going crazy. And so when she gets back in there and has to re-experience all of this again, and John gives the perspective of the new guy who's never been around it before. So he's seeing all of this for the first time too, but he has the police more analytical side. And yes, at the end of book one, each book kind of introduces the next villain, and the slasher is definitely revealed at the end of book one. The cannibal rednecks are revealed at the end of book two because they're the star of book three. And so each one will lead into the other. And like I said, there is a big shift in the way that people will see and think of the town in book three. I don't want to spoil. I don't.
No, because again, this is storytelling. I had Mike Barron on, and Mike Barron, I cut up a clip, and it's not coming out for probably another 10 weeks. But we're speaking about storytelling, and he talks about how 90% of things suck. It's just the rule. It's just the rule. So that means that, and then I'll admit it. I like to think that a bunch of my interviews are good, but probably 90% of them are not great. So if I do 150 interviews, I'll be lucky if I get 25 or 30 that are really good for that year. But if I interview for 30 years straight and I get 30, 40 good interviews a year, I now have a lot of content. I have 250 great interviews. And that's something that I think people forget. I mean, you listen to Joe Rogan, not every interview Joe Rogan does is great. Joe Rogan is a great interviewer. And Joe Rogan has a lot of fun on his show, and his show is great. But there are episodes that are better than others. A shitty episode for Joe Rogan is still probably better than most. But the point that I'm getting at here is that I think there's an issue of storytelling and understanding how to pace a book, and understanding having those shifts in there. I think is crucial, and I think it's a real skill. And book one, it's kind of a one-off, leading into book two, but obviously I don't know what's going to happen in book three. Right. Would have been helpful if you sent me a copy, like a digital copy. I could have read it. It would have been helpful. But I digress. Because if you're telling me there is a shift where there's an awakening, might be a good way to put it. So, but I don't want to push too far into this because I do want to talk about the other stuff where making a board game is complicated. And it's its own set of problems. I've never done it. Making a comic, I've never done that either. But I have probably more knowledge on how to make a comic just because I speak to more people about that. And I interview a lot more people on that topic. And so what is that like, though? Because they present different challenges. And what is that like? Because the comic industry is very complicated right now, both on a creation level, what people want and what people need and what people are interested in. And also the funding aspect is complicated. The distribution method is complicated. What you actually need to print, how to print it, how to fund what you need extra to print. The business model is complicated. And I mean, the expenditure of this shit is massively complicated. And even how to get eyeballs on what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, that is... as far as the logistics, that actually came a lot easier to me. The problem with logistics is cost shifts so rapidly, and we hate passing on shipping costs to customers.
I don't.
But you have to. I mean, I can't afford to eat $25, $30 on a project for extra shipping costs, because one government decided they're going to put a tariff on, like it's an extra 20% just to send it to the UK off the top, no matter what. It's insane. Or anywhere in the EU really is, I think 17 to 20 something percent. But as far as the design goes, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. What I was gonna talk about the shipping is I think is interesting. I charge anywhere from 12 to 14 bucks when I ship out a book on my eBay store. And people say, dude, your shipping's expensive, and somebody else is shipping it for 9 bucks. And I'm like, well, that's fine for them. But
Yeah.
this is legitly what it costs. Now, I will say this is that sometimes I get my shipping down to $8, but other times it's been 12, 13 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not making money on your shipping.
No.
And what I find is that people have an understanding of why they're buying and why they're spending money on shipping. Now, I'll eat a dollar or two on
Mm-hmm.
certain products. Like I can afford if I'm selling a $45 book that I paid 20 for, I could take a buck or two and I'll take the hit on that. Or I'll ship it on 12-day shipping and not 3-day shipping. I've done that too. And that helps to reduce cost. But again, I don't have a problem. I don't think most people have a problem with shipping. I don't. I think if I'm spending $700 and I live in the United States on a Kickstarter, I'll be very honest, I would like free shipping.
Mm-hmm.
No offense, because I'm spending enough money that you should cut me a break on the shipping. And once you get to a certain point, I think the person who's running the campaign, if I spent $5,000 on somebody's project on Kickstarter, you better give me free shipping. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You better just take care of me on that front.
If,
But
if you want to spend $5,000 on this campaign, I will give you free shipping. I will drive it to your house. Just saying.
but my point is that I pass on shipping costs to my
Yeah.
customers. And when I buy things off of eBay, they pass it on to me. It's just how it's done. And I don't have a problem with it, but I digress. I think that's actually the least of the logistics. In my opinion, I don't think that's a logistic problem because I think that's just the way business is done. No
Mhm.
company, no company. I have an iPhone, everybody. Little fact, this is an Apple iPhone. Who paid the tax on this iPhone?
Yeah, we did.
I did. Apple pays zero tax. They pay
Mhm.
zero tax. Um, I pay the tax on that iPhone for Apple.
Mhm. And as for designing the game versus designing the graphic novel, of course, I have more freedom to design the graphic novel to be any way I want. And to a sort, I do with the board game too, but I have to make the board game balanced. As so many games, and sorry, so many games with card games or anything have it where they have it. You can clearly tell they have a favored method of winning or a favored character because that thing is so overpowered that you can almost get it and win the game, right? With my games, I never want that. In fact, with certain other card games that are not out yet that we won't mention, um, I designed it so, and already I had that. Oh, this person should be more powerful. I'm like, no, they shouldn't. They have to be balanced. They have to play so that everybody has an equal chance of winning, and but still feels fun. You know what I mean? Now, for instance, I did brutal honesty when I first made this game like 10 years back. I included Sherlock Holmes because public domain and all that. But I made it so that Sherlock Holmes was a mantle that's passed down. Yes, there was the original Sherlock. He passed away, as people do, unfortunately. And they started the Holmes Society. So every year, one person is inaugurated, I guess, or anointed with the mantle of Sherlock Holmes. And until they die, that's who it is. Um, So that's how I was able to bring Sherlock Holmes into Slaughterville. So it's not the original Holmes, but it's one of the society. And I had a whole, I swear to God in heaven, I had a whole backstory written. I posted it, and I explained to people how he came into the story and how you as the player could be the Sherlock Holmes. But when I made the character, uh, I got the starstruck thing, you know, and his ability was a bit on the overpowered side. So when I reprinted, I toned him down a little bit just to make it more viable.
I don't have a problem though with overpowered characters in collaborative games. because overpowered characters in collaborative games where, okay, cool, I forget the game, but it's it's you versus the island. I forget that game. It's a great game. So each turn, the water is rising, and if the water
Forbidden
reaches
Island.
Forbidden, oh, it's a great game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's the best game to play if you know you have an asshole friend who wants to fuck up the game.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's that and Shadow over Camelot is a great
Oh
game
my
too.
god. Yeah.
I
That
bought that
game,
game dirt cheap. Dirt cheap.
if you have it now, that game is bank. It's impossible to find, but it's going for big money now.
Bought mine for $12 at Barnes and Noble on sale.
Really? I think they're going like $200 now.
Mine's not even open, and it's great. And I'm not
Always
selling.
the investor. Always the investor.
No. I bought it because they were playing it on tabletop. I'm like, this
Yep.
seems like a lot of fun. And there you go. And hope for the best. I mean, technically speaking, I got Santi and Phoenix because of tabletop too.
Mhm.
Her, and I've interviewed her like 4 or 5 times. Super smart. I just reach out, and then it's crazy who says yes. Say yes to the dress, Chris. Say yes to the dress.
Yeah.
That's a great show. That's a great show in so many ways. But again, I'm getting distracted now. But I don't have a problem with overpowered characters in collaborative games because it only is going to help the whole thing.
Mhm.
But even to go further into this, though, because obviously, even just talking about the whole sphere of comics right now, where I find that it's tricky because you have stories that are really good on Kickstarter. You have a lot of bad girl art covers. You have a lot of people falling into what are known as what I call variant traps, where you need to
Mhm.
go and hire and have 20 variants or have 17 variants on your book, and you need to have a nude version of that. And then we have this whole problem where somebody does 30K on their book, but they also just spent a boatload of money on covers and
Mhm.
25% of what they spent. And it creates an issue because maybe the story is okay. And it goes back to this 90% rule where you got an awesome fucking cover. Undeniably. I mean, we'll prove it right now. I don't think anybody's going to mind. These 6 covers are awesome. This isn't a Kickstarter book. These 6 covers are awesome. They just came out. It's, I think, FemForce Taylor Swift's version. I don't know if the story is good or bad, but that cover art is fantastic. And so, what is this like for you? Because you don't have bad girl cover art, but you have a decent story at where you're at, and that's where this gets tricky. I feel in
Yeah.
comics.
Yeah, I've backed hundreds of projects, and so very few that I actually keep because, like you said, the story's just not there. 90% of it is stuff, right? And so whenever I'm looking at a project now, if I don't see the dialogue and I don't see a few pages of actual story and not just your hand-picked greatest art in it, I won't bother backing it at all. I won't. Because I'm tired of getting burned by that pretty picture on the front and having the inside be so convoluted and ridiculous that it's pointless. Now there were books, gosh, what was it called? It doesn't matter. But the premise inside of it was kind of ridiculous, but it worked in the story. When I say ridiculous, I mean that
I'll throw a movie out there that'll get the point across. Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer's premise is completely ridiculous.
okay.
The movie. Basically, Earth went into nuclear winter, and then there's a train going around it, and it's been doing it for years, and there's a gigantic train, and the people at the back are poor, and they're eating bugs, and they're eating their own shit, essentially. And the people, as you go through it, are partying, and they're oblivious on this massive train, and they're having a good life, and all sorts of cool stuff, and then it's a fight in the train. I mean, it's brilliant. And then the back's trying to take over the front. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. The premise of that whole thing is ridiculous.
Right.
But once you're in the train and you're into it, you're like, I'm in. This is ridiculous. But it works because
Right.
I'm like, I could see how the back end is trying to make their way through cart by cart by cart into the front of the train to take it over. I could
Mhm.
see that, and it's great. The whole thing's ridiculous.
Mhm.
But once you get past that, there you go.
But that's the point, is do you buy into the world? And so many that I've read, have been unable to create that buy-in. They're not able to, because again, either they want their person to be so overpowered that they don't have any struggles, or they contradict themselves from what I've seen it, where they contradict themselves with story or powers from one page to the next. And it's just, guys, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Degeneration Excess, suck it. Fix your stuff, right? Fix it. Get your story right, and then if you want to have your 57 different covers, go for it. But if that's the only thing you're offering me is 57 covers, keep them in your box, man. I don't want them. I want a good story first.
Yeah, see, I'm so different now where I just want cover art. And I want those cool covers. I like this stuff, but also on a Kickstarter. If I like a cover and I think I can make money with it, I'll buy 3 or 4 of them.
Well, we're coming at it from a different aspect, though. You're coming at it from, I'm going to buy to resell. I'm buying to read and enjoy.
And you're wrong.
I know. Let me grab that knife out of here. Hold on. It's
This is so terrible. No. Look, I will buy a graphic novel. So I just bought Corey Hardyman's Sister Mercy Volume 1. I think it's 8 or 9 issues. And it's a hardcover, and I will buy a hardcover nice edition of a graphic novel because I want to read that book. I just bought all of Destiny New York from Pat Chan, volumes 1 through 6, because I never got to buy it. And I want to read that book and I want to own that book. And I read volume 1. I really enjoyed the concept. I enjoy Pat Chan's writing. I enjoy where it's going, and I'm curious where the hell the rest of the story's going. I enjoy Destiny New York. But I don't want the single floppies of that book. To me, I'm at a point where I will buy graphic novels on Kickstarter if I don't like your variants. But I also am an artist hunter. So Sun Kumanaki, I love Sun's work. I love Gregor Watson's work. I just had on. I love Ebass. And so that's the other thing too, is that I like certain people's style and I like their art. And so I back plenty of people's Kickstarters. And maybe I'm part of the problem, but that's just but it also creates a problem because you get Gregor Watson on a project of yours, I'm now more interested, right?
Yeah.
If you get Senko Manaki, I'm now more interested. You get, I like Luke Stone's work. I like Luke Stone a lot. I like what he does. Yeah. It's great. You don't have to take it down. Don't worry. Don't take it down. I don't want to damage your beautiful thing. But no, seriously, don't take it down. Don't take it down.
No, sorry, I had to blow my nose. I didn't think you'd want to see that.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to take it down. I don't want you to take it down. I was being very serious about that. I don't take down expensive things either. From my wall or from my boxes. But anyway, the point is that I'll buy a graphic novel or something if I want to read it. Or I'll buy it digital because I'm at a point where I'm just like, but again, I don't know.
And again, I'm right with you. But I got the story down first. I have the story to where I want it. And I only have one cover on this one. I actually talked to Greg Bow. He's a good. You know what? He looks, when I first met that guy, it was at a convention down in Georgia, and that guy looked scary. Like he looks like, I'm gonna kill you if you talk to me. But when you talk to him,
he speaks like I'm Greg Watson. Like that.
It is crazy. Yeah, nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he had me. He was going to set up with me, and he was going to do one of the covers for this. It didn't happen. We had a scheduling conflict, and it's fine. That's life. But
so to blame Gwen.
No, she was nice. She was nice.
I've never met Gwen. That's a joke. I'm pretty sure everybody understands that's a joke.
Yeah.
But let's actually even talk about that a little bit too, because obviously there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. So I think a bunch of people don't have an idea of who their characters are.
Exactly.
So you know wrestling, right? I mean, LA Knight. I mean, the basic realm of wrestling right now is that you got Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, Dominic Mysterio, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and then I'm trying to think of who else is on Raw that's relevant at the moment. Um, I think that's six people. Maybe you got R-Truth. You got, I mean, if you don't, R-Truth is a comic book character. R-Truth, if you put R-Truth and you try to make, actually, R-Truth would be a great WWE champion. It'd be hilarious if he was the WWE champion. That would break people. That would break people. But the point is that R-Truth is comedic relief, and he's a really talented wrestler.
He reminds me of the initial Y2J Chris Jericho thing, who knew it was a bit that he was playing and it just goes ham all in on it. That's why you gotta love it.
Oh, it's brilliant. I like how R-Truth is like, if I win, you're not in the Judgment Day either. And then Damian Priest is like, I like this idea. The whole thing, the 34 Miracle on 34th Street fight. Oh my God, with R-Truth. Oh my God. Oh, but it goes back to character, right? WWE knows how to use R-Truth, and I think a lot of people don't know how to use their characters correctly, because I don't think they've had a conversation and sat down and said, "Who is my character? I'm trying to write a comic book. I know exactly the character I'm writing is a super nerd who wants the cute girl, and he's going to get the cute girl, but he's going to make a deal with the devil to get it to some degree, and then he's going to learn how to be a man out of it."
Yeah.
And I know exactly who that character is. So that character just wants to score the winning touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And just be recognized by the cool kids. Doesn't want to have a beer with them. Doesn't want to do anything wrong. He just wants the recognition. I think that's a problem right now. And I think this is where comics and why DC, Marvel, and a bunch of other people are losing market share.
Yeah.
But it's more complicated than that. But for this argument, yeah.
Right. And some of them stop so quickly at the superficial. Like you said, he wants to be recognized by the cool kids. But then they stop to ask why. Why does he care so much? Why? And I say he, but of course I could mean she. I could mean whatever.
Yeah. He could be, he or she could be gender fluid, Chris.
Doesn't matter. That's also the beauty of the game.
Offenders. You're equal offenders on this show.
Well, no, that's also the beauty of the games. And I actually had, a bunch of people sit down and they asked me all the same stuff. And I said, well, how do you know what they are? They're you. You can be whatever you want. So can they in the game. So can they in the RPG. I'm not saying anything about these guys, gals, whatever. It's up to you. And I've had people from all walks play with me. I have video. But anyway, before I get back into it, before I forget, so many people, like you said, forget to go into who the characters are, and they bring you something that's so vapid or basic that there's no way it can last. And yes, if they are just doing the cover, I'm calling it cover scam, where that's all they're trying to do is sell you a cover.
Quick might be a good way.
Okay. What's that?
Cover quick buck.
Yeah. And that's all they want. And look, I'm not blaming Greg or Greg Bow. I'm not blaming any of them that make the covers, because make your money, son. Go get that money. But the creators should know. Go ahead.
No, you first.
No,
I interrupted.
No, it's fine.
I insist.
Dude, you've known me for like 5 years. I don't get upset with you.
No. What were you saying?
But I think they should honestly, if they really cared about the art of comic books, and I really truly do, that they would worry more about the story. Like modern Marvel, like you were saying, you can tell modern Marvel doesn't give a damn about the story anymore.
There are 10 books a year. or let's put it this way. Marvel probably produces maybe 200 issues a year. I think it's a fair, probably more.
More than that. Yeah.
They probably produce about 400 issues, give or take. Conservatively, I'm willing to put real money somewhere in that range.
Sure.
Probably about 40 of those issues are good.
Yeah.
The question is at what 40? That's
Right.
the key. So if you picked up and you were miraculous, same thing with DC, right? So if you picked up those 40, your interpretation of Marvel is very different than somebody who picked up some dog shit of Marvel. There you go. Or if they picked up 10 really good issues and 30 bad ones, so it's what 40 you're picking up that
Mm-hmm.
are good. Because if you pick up the 40, you're like, Marvel's killing it, man. Yeah.
Right.
Like it's kind of like, if you parlayed that Buffalo and Green Bay were going to beat the Cowboys, you're like, I'm good at betting. I'm really good at this. Or if you're like me and you pick Tampa Bay and you put like 10 bucks in Tampa Bay, and people are like, you were wrong, Andrew. Really? Who won that game, everybody?
Yeah.
But
Like there were, and I'm going to stick with Marvel because that's what we're talking about. There was a gentleman, and I don't know him personally, but Jason Aaron. Okay. When he was on other books, I didn't care as much. Like, he didn't get the character. But once they threw that dude on Conan, he was pretty good. Like, he brought you into it.
he wrote a
So
book.
it's a thing. I don't think Marvel understands the management side of where people need to be.
So Jason Aaron hated Thor.
Yeah.
He hated Thor, and I thought he did a good job with Lady Thor. I really did. I thought he did a great job with Lady Thor, Jane Foster. I really liked that book that he did, the first volume. I thought it was great. Now here's what I think. Jason Aaron did a book called The Other Side. It's about Vietnam, and it depicted a Vietnamese soldier fighting for the freedom of his country and a U.S. soldier who was trying to catch gonorrhea so he wouldn't have to go to war in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about legit parallels. So the night before he's drafted, he's trying to hook up with like 2 or 3 women to catch an STD so he wouldn't have to go. So some guy would rather get an STD than go to fight in Vietnam. That tells you everything about that war. I mean, in a nutshell, beautiful book. Dave Stewart was on the book. It was done by like Vertigo or
Image,
like
I think it was.
So what happened is that the book initially was done by one company, then it was purchased or relapsed to Image in graphic novel format. Great book, awesome story, 4 issues, not 120, 130 pages. Great book. One of my favorite books that I've read about war and about life. I wrote a great review on it. I think Jason Aaron read it. He's like, he retweeted it. It was cool. It was great. It was great. So the point though is that he understood those characters.
Right.
And that's what I think is an issue. I also feel that there's nothing wrong. I feel like a bunch of people, and you and I both have friends in this, and I'll tell you who I'm thinking about, where they don't know what type of company they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to say, look, I'm a variant central company with an average story, and we don't pretend to be anything else.
Yeah.
If that's a decision you make, that's great. I'll give you an example. There's a podcast that all they do is they talk to really sexy women. That's all they do on that show. And you're going to have a bunch of girls, and legitimately a requirement is the girls to be in bikinis on the show. And everybody knows why they're there. It's great. Or they're speaking to people in nightlife. Fresh and Fit is a good example of that. We know what Fresh and Fit is. That is their brand. There's nothing wrong with having a brand. But so somebody could say, look, I have an average story with the most amazing cover art, and I'm going to smoke you, and you're going to come right into my Kickstarter, and you're going to want one of everything, and then you're going to want 2 of everything. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. That's a business model. But I think a bunch of people want both. Yeah. And I don't think you can get both. You either can have an amazing story and you're complete story driven, or you're complete variant driven, or you have to be creative in the hybrid, but they don't want to commit to walk in a harder path. And that's, I think, part of the problem is.
That's one of the reasons why I took a long time away from YouTube and stuff, because I don't post regularly like everybody else does, because I am an entertainment company, because I want to get into the videos as well, that sometimes does YouTube, right? I'm not a YouTuber that does comics like you see with some, and they're afraid to commit or focus, like you said, or they don't know that they have to or that they should focus. Because if I spend all my time, which I wish I could, uh, doing the videos, making reviews, and everything like I'd like to do, that would take away so much time from being able to create the books, create the games, and everything else that I just don't have that kind of time. Now, once I start doing the movies, sure, I will already have the video content created, and that'll gel right with it and mix together.
So
But
this is interesting. So let me tell you my perspective on this. I am a podcast
Mhm.
that obviously fits into another business that fits into a third business, and all my businesses all they're not vertically integrated; they're horizontally
Mhm.
mixed. Where this is a separate entity than my eBay business, but they have synergy because it gives me insight and it gives me access to people that could be really, really, really helpful.
Mhm.
And when you have access to people, all of a sudden what happens is that you could buy things cheaper or you could get things that people might not, let you get normally. Or you might
Exactly.
simply say, hey, look, I got a limited five coming up day one, man. My campaign is launching at this point. Just be there at 12. Just take it and don't worry about the economics of it. You're gonna do just fine on it, right? Because it's gonna sell in minutes. So I pulled a one-on-one off of somebody Sunday night, and I was lucky because I was interviewing him and I was looking him up, and then I opened up an email from him, and it's like, yo, I'm doing live sales. I have 21 variants, are all one of ones. So for $44, I got a one-on-one comic book. That's a pretty good steal, in my opinion. But it just so happens that I was sort of in the right place at the right time, directly and indirectly.
I was thinking about doing a an Andrew exclusive kind of cover where it showed them in the forest, like I have those kind of shots, and then just have your logo, your character in the background flitting around, like so you would know that this is for. But I didn't know if you'd get all upset.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. That's pretty funny.
Like
I
again, one of them Easter eggs that I like.
I would do a darker cover for the forest.
Hmm.
So there was a story, and I only know this because of Tara Manning. Do you know who Tara Manning is, right?
I have heard the name, yes.
She was, I forget what podcast she was the focus of, but she was a beauty queen and a teacher who disappeared and was murdered by two of her high school students.
Hmm.
And then they cracked the case like 19 years later. Wild, right? So the reason what happened, and this is freaky, is that somebody decided for Halloween that they had a bunch of missing like people posters and they put it out in the woods for a Halloween party, and hers was up there.
Hmm.
And so imagine you have that of all these missing people or dead at all, and you have that on the woods and it's clear their image. And I don't know what legal hurdle you would have to go through. That's a trippy cover. That's a
Yeah.
freaky cover, and that's an unnerving cover. Because if somebody, because then that's not a cover necessarily that's going to work on Kickstarter, but that's going to make somebody stop at a con.
Hmm.
That's just creepy and freaky and oof. And that is because that'll unnerve somebody, especially if it's real people.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of thing that I would want, because I want, if I go to a con, I want something that's gonna make people feel a little uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Because what you
Like
want
when,
to evoke emotion, right?
yeah, like when they went to, forgive me, I don't know the guy's name. When they went to the Aokigahara Suicide Forest.
Oh, Logan Paul did.
Yeah, they did that, and it generated the right amount. Again, Eric Bischoff, controversy creates cash.
Oh,
I
without a doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll call it out. I mean, you send that to me, and I don't think you're gonna mind me saying it. I have a
not
good
at all.
relationship with the Wheelers, but a
Mhm.
lot of people have problems with them. A lot of people do. I don't have a problem with them. A lot of people also don't have a problem with them. A lot of people might not fully agree with them, but they want to work with them because, again, they get eyes on them. And the way I see it is that I can't do anything that's going to hurt my reputation. I'm not in the thick of it. If I write for them or I interview them, no problem. And if people give me shit for it, I say, look, who have you had on your show? I can name 10 people. If you're an interviewer and you're serious about this, you're gonna have people who upset other people, without a fucking doubt.
Yeah.
If you're not upsetting people or having a plethora of guests that piss people off, you're not working hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you want to do it every day. It just means you want to do it enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I interview a porn star. You don't think that doesn't upset people for two reasons. A, Andrew, how'd you pull that off? And B,
I wouldn't say I'm a porn star. I'm a porn aficionado. No.
I have a porn problem, and I am here to admit it. And this is an intervention. And bazinga.
But yeah, my family's Wheelers. I mean, and so it'd be interesting to see if we're related.
It's so little time. Oh,
I know.
let
But
me see if I can
yeah,
see
no. So you were talking earlier about Mike Barron, and what was really cool. I always liked, even before I knew what the guy looked like. Okay, because I read the comics back in the day, and I knew that he understood what character was. You know, because I grew up on reading the more street level kind of characters. And again, back in then, yes, we had Wizard magazine, which I wish to God we would get the actual magazine back with the promos and everything. It was beautiful. But before I knew what this guy looked like, I knew that I liked what he did. And I've always been a big fan of him, Chuck, Ernie Chan. My God, Ernie Chan was my favorite artist for decades.
Scott Lobdell's another one.
Yeah, all great, And Mike asked me to send him the copies of my book, the comics. I did, and this guy called me. Who am I? I'm a moron, right? He called me up for like 2 hours. We're sitting there chatting. I'm taking notes like a madman because you damn well better. He's like, your pacing is great. I'm like, holy shit, that is the best part of my year. When Mike Barron says your pacing, he likes, oh my, dude, I could have filled the cup right there if you know the Jay and Silent Bob reference. And he gave me great tips on how to build better dialogue, and I got all of that before book 3. I put all of this into book 3 with the pacing, with making impactful moments, but realistically impactful, not just shock value, you know. And that dude helped me more than I could ever say.
So let's actually dive into this too, because I hate to say this. So I've had pleasant conversations with Chuck Dixon. I've had pleasant, when you're talking to Chuck Dixon about Milo Yiannopoulos, that's a blast.
Really?
Milo Yiannopoulos interviews Chuck Dixon, and then I interview Chuck Dixon like 4 weeks later. Oh my fucking God. I love Milo still.
Milo's a trip.
Milo is something else. I love Milo when he was Ivanka Wall. I thought that was the funniest thing. He's in drag. Oh my God. And he's just coming out with a Statue of Liberty thing on his, in drag. Oh my God. Just I never laughed so hard. Because Milo is it's so ridiculous and it's so clown oriented. But I do disagree with Milo Yiannopoulos on hazing. I'm not a fan of hazing, and I think he's wrong on it. I think he's wrong on it. He's like, oh, a bunch of kids get drunk and there's been enough deaths with hazing incidents that I'm sorry, Milo, you're fucking wrong. You're wrong on that one.
Right.
I agree with like 95% of certain, not 95, but enough of Milo that I agree with him. The hazing thing, though, I don't think he was making an argument. He's not right on that argument, and that's the easiest argument to beat him on.
I think we do need a point where kids need to be allowed to toughen up and create that ability to handle conflict, because these days nobody can.
But that's different than hazing.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. But with hazing, it actually I don't want to say always, but mostly takes it too far to the point where people get injured, and that should never be.
It's
ball busting versus injury.
you're pledging to a fraternity,
Yeah.
and they say drink a fifth of vodka. How can that end any other way than shitty?
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
I've done it. Yeah.
and so there you go. And so what Milo was making the argument is that, oh, nobody gets hurt with that. And no, dude, it's a risk reward problem. It's kind of like there's nothing wrong with driving and there's nothing wrong with drinking. If you take drinking and driving together, there's a problem.
Yes.
So you can go drink all you want, you can go drive all you want, just don't mix the two,
Mm-hmm.
and you're fine.
Absolutely.
And this goes back to what I'm going where I think a bunch of people also in comics. I'm just curious what you think. Don't know what they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what I am with my eBay business. I know exactly the parameters on what I buy, how I buy it, and why I buy it. And 90% of the time, I'm right. 90% of the time, I am right where in the sweet spot. And I don't need to go through all that. That's a whole different conversation. Someone wants to have a business conversation and have me on a podcast, be my guest. But the point is that I know exactly where I am in my business, and I know exactly what I'm not. I'm not going to go pick up a book on a retail package. I'll take a few here and there and a few pitch shots here and there, but I'm not going to go and be like, you don't have bad girl cover, no worries. I'm going to be specifically understanding what I'm aiming at and what I buy on a product level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people don't understand in comics is that if you are a Western, you have to follow the rules of Westerns. If you are a space odyssey, you have to follow the rules of Space Odyssey. If you are an American manga, you have to follow those rules. You can't break those rules, or if you break those rules, you got to stay in a slight vein where, okay, cool, you could do an action figure thing in a more American style if you're doing an American manga, but you can't be doing surreal art.
Mm-hmm.
What were we gonna say?
So yeah, you have to have a good reason for breaking those rules. Now, again, Firefly is one of those that could do it. They took the American Western and put it into space, and it worked until the comic books went off the rails so bad it was terrible. I'll fight anybody to this day on that. Those comic books suck. I'll fight you on that one. Literal. But it comes down to knowing the characters. That's what it all comes back to, is making these people real and believable. And you're in their world, following them. You're not this is how I do it. I shouldn't say anybody should. I don't make up the story. I let them tell me their story. Now, granted, if something sounds stupid, I go, "Are you sure you remembered that right?" And then we readjust. But that's how I do it. It's I don't know. I know it sounds weird, but I listen to them tell me the story and I just write it down.
I get in which that it is what it is. I think that just a lot of people also just don't know how to fucking write. I'm not saying so I am not a creative writer. I'm a technical writer. When I'm writing about stocks and I'm breaking down fact after fact after fact on something, and I could give you a very economic theoretical reasoning for picking a stock, and I could write you a 600 word essay on that with ease, saying this parameters, this is its earnings, this is this, and here's why you should buy it. And what I'll probably do is that I'll probably even just bullet point it out, because I'll say, cool, I'll give you a paragraph, I'll give you that, and then I'll just bullet point out the highlights, because it's the fastest way, but that's technical writing. And I'm creative technically in that way. I don't know how to write a story, and I think a lot of people don't know how to write a story, and they don't know how to also make it uniform.
Yeah. Can you please bring up this page that I sent you?
You asked. I mean, you said, could you please?
You can freely say no. But this is one example of this story and understanding the characters that I was talking about. This guy here is called the Tall Thin Man. You don't know his name yet. Nobody does except for me. This is Daddy Ray, the head of the Cannibal Rednecks. These two do not like each other. Like it's a, I hate you, you hate me, but we have to work together kind of a thing. And he's saying, like, why Daddy Ray called him, or the mayor sent this guy here to help Daddy Ray with a problem. And like, why is, and Ray goes, because our God is stronger, because Daddy Ray believes in his religion, his faith. And he shows that by cutting his own throat and allowing it to heal, right? So he's all cocky and confident there, right? But then you get down here and you get the smart ass thing. So if your God is so strong, why are you getting sick? And he says, looks like you got a shaving cut because that slit throat didn't heal all the way. And it just shows their animosity towards each other without getting over the top and ridiculous. I mean, yes, the guy slitting his own throat is over the top, but it fits with who the character is. And he said he doesn't hurt him. He doesn't beat the crap out of him. He just says, don't stay too long out here in the field because the dogs are hungry. So, and it's allowing them to be realistic, even in a fantastical world. That's important. And I think that's why places like Critical Role and those other D&D podcasts get so popular, is because the characters that these people are playing seem like they would really be this.
I've never watched Critical Role. I don't really want to watch people play games.
It was an example. It was an
I'm
example.
sorry. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with watching people play a D&D game versus people playing a D&D game. I think it's a little different when you're watching sports, because we can't all be Major League Baseball players and we can't all be magical wizard Patrick Mahomes. But we can all, what'd you say?
I have his card too.
I'm not a football guy. I'm a baseball guy. I really am. I'm a huge baseball fan. I enjoy baseball. It's America's favorite pastime. And they smoke the NFL on digital content, apparently. Did you know that? The Major League Baseball is significantly smaller than the NFL, yet they make up more digital content than the NFL. Because MLB invested a lot of money to make that happen, and they just released a lot of digital content. And it's not a game issue. The NFL and football can do it if they wanted to. They really could if they wanted to. They just have to put the infrastructure in, which is crazy, because the NFL might buy a piece of ESPN. That's because Disney's moronic, but that's a different discussion too. Let me explain why you should buy Disney, everybody. There's 4 things you need to know. Legacy content is one. So it's all the legacy content's still good. And I'm talking Kim Possible, Jake Long. I'm talking PBJ Otter. I'm talking Recess. I'm talking all that good stuff. I'm talking Boy Meets World. All the good stuff, right? So that stuff's still good. Phineas and Ferb is good. And so Lizzie McGuire is great. All that stuff's great. So that's 1. 2, they made a bonehead mistake by taking on a lot of debt to buy Fox. And they should have done it in 8 lump sums, or 8 or 16 parts with cash positions. And this way it would have extended how much debt they needed to take, and they could have cash flowed some of it, or it would have been less expensive rather than take out debt for the whole deal. So that's 2. 3, they got Hulu in that deal coming up. So that adds a boatload more debt to them. And then 4, what's happening now is that they got to pump a lot of money into Disney Plus to keep that thing afloat, because when you're building out a streaming platform, it will be profitable. It's naturally going to be profitable. Ben Dunn's wrong on that. He doesn't think that streaming is the future. I'm like, no, it is. It's crystal clear. But you got to pump money into it to stabilize it first and foremost. And Peacock's done it. All the big players are. Amazon has done it too. And so that's the 4 reasons why you buy Disney, everybody, because they're going to get cheaper before they become massively more profitable.
And the Alien Queen is now a Disney princess. I mean,
and then the new Disney prince is
game over, man. Game over.
What? No. It's John McClane. John McClane's a Disney prince.
Is he?
Yes, he is. Technically speaking,
Fox owns Die Hard. That's right.
They do own Die Hard. It's amazing. It's amazing.
John McClane is a Disney prince. Huh. I need that shirt made up right now.
I'm working on it.
Hans Gruber. Well, yeah, it makes sense. Hans Gruber was like Scar at the end. Then you can see. Yeah.
Hans Gruber was Alan Rickman, right?
Oh, one of the best.
Oh, he was great. He was great in Galaxy Quest too.
Yeah.
Galaxy Quest was great. Everybody was in Galaxy Quest. Everybody was in it. It was a knock on Star Trek, but it was really good. It was really good.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. It was absolutely great, and it was. I mean, Tim Allen's character was a rub at Kirk, and how shoot
every time he loses his shirt when he does anything. Yeah.
That also who's the actor? Shatner. William Shatner.
Oh yeah, William Shatner. Yeah.
That was a dig at William Shatner for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, but I digress. So let's get into some controversial discussions.
Absolutely.
So how you feel about the Eagles?
Honestly, I don't watch football. So I don't even know what happened. I don't know what's going on. I keep hearing about it. Like friends of mine, like Mike Nye, this guy I know, he's snapping because he was an Eagles fan. He just hates whatever it was that happened. I don't know what it is.
So if you put $100 on Tampa last Monday night, you would have won like $300. It was bad. It was bad because they were a plus 132. So the Eagles were a negative 148. And what do? I put like $10 on Tampa. And people are like, why are you doing that, man? I'm like, because Tampa's going to smoke them. Yeah, they're going to smoke them. And they did. It was great. It was so good. It was amazing. Wow. The whole thing was amazing. I mean, I don't think I've ever enjoyed a football game the way I enjoyed the Eagles getting smoked. And they got me my Cowboys monies back.
Yeah, I heard they didn't do so well.
The Cowboys didn't do well either. They got destroyed by Green Bay.
I used to be I was a Packers fan from the 70s and 80s. So I mean, I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, it was amazing. But we don't have to talk about that. So let's actually talk about a lot of stuff that's going on with Kickstarter. And I think the biggest thing that I'm curious how you feel is the AI art campaign. I think there's one or two that's done like 23,000. I think it's Everstone or Everheart. And I bought 2 books from them. They're not bad books. They did Chloe James, a cover of Chloe James, and I love Chloe James. If anybody knows what Chloe James looks like, oh my God, Chloe James is just she's absolutely stunningly beautiful. Great cover. There's only 25 of them. So $30 cover for $25 of Chloe James. And if you're a Chloe James fan, oh, what a great cover. But obviously you're doing 23,000 and it's AI art. I mean, that raises questions. It raises a lot of questions, actually. Question 1 is that why are people into it? B, there's nothing illegal about it. There's ethic questions. So there's nothing illegal right now about AI.
Okay.
As far as covers, I think it's an ethical question. I also think that if all of a sudden you got 900 backers saying we want this, who am I as another creator to say you can't do that? Because once you say I can't do this, that means that can I tell you that I don't like what you drew and you can't sell that either? And that's a complicated question. That's a really complicated question.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious what you think, because I get why people are upset, but I'm also saying if you tell me I can't do an AI cover, but an audience wants it, does that mean I can tell you you can't do something either?
Well, that's my whole thing about it. A lot of the ones, and I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of the ones that are arguing about AI art, and yes, if it uses non-public domain art as the reference, I think that's unethical. Okay. Again, not illegal yet, but unethical. However, these same people will go out and they'll make a Rogue cover or a Marvel related cover and use the characters and sell it at conventions or sell it on Kickstarter and have no problem with it. I'm sorry, did you pay Marvel the licensing and royalty fees? No. So no.
Crazy route. So I interviewed somebody who has a cover that was taken in certain ways. The pose is almost identical from a cover that CB Zane did.
Okay.
That's an indie person taken from another indie creator, where this character has this other woman pinned. The background's a little bit different, and Stokes took the cover and he has the wrestler pinned, and it's
Mhm.
the exact same pose, verbatim, right? You put those two things together next to each other. I'm like, this is way too similar. I understand that there's only so many poses you could pin somebody down on, but
Right.
this is way too close.
Mhm.
Way too close. I mean, not to bring up bad blood, but there was the whole thing that Jamie Tyndall did with Brett Booth, or I think it's Booth's cover, and Jamie Tyndall did a cover, and again, it was very close. I don't
Mhm.
know if it was fully the same because different characters, different accessories, different colors. I understand all that, but it was close. It was close. I mean, there's an argument to say that I'm not willing to say it was a complete copy, but it was close. And I think that's a real issue because I understand that there's only so many ways you could do X cover,
Right.
right?
And
And
and I
so
and I don't mind homage covers either. Like if it's not your main, it's a variant, and you want to put out a this is my tribute to one of my favorite old covers, and but you're using your characters and everything else. I'm okay with that. My problem is you took the character of Rogue, Vampirella, um, whoever you took, I don't care. And you're putting them on your art and then you're selling it. And then you're coming to me and saying AI art is theft. Unless you've already paid licensing fees for the use of those other characters, keep your mouth shut. That's the end of it. And I'm going to say it as bluntly as that. Keep your mouth shut. You have nothing to say.
my issue is that if you tell me I can't do X, then that means I could tell you that you can't do Y.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really want to trade? And if I put this, maybe I should put this as my Facebook status saying, if you tell somebody they can't do AI art, then you are opening up yourself to be exposed that somebody can tell you that you can't draw a certain character. Do we
Mm-hmm.
really want to go down this? Because that's the issue of the First Amendment.
Right.
It is a First Amendment issue. And if you openly say X and you disagree with me, I'm going to tell you that your government, you should go to your government, you should tell Congress that they can suppress your speech.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to escalate it that fast. Because it has to be. Now, you could think it's unethical. That's a different discussion. But unethical is not illegal. And that's the problem. And I don't think many people actually think about these issues. I don't.
Yeah. Now, will I use AI art? No, and it's nothing. It's just it's not. I want a certain style, and I don't have the skills to manipulate enough to make it work for me. But I it's not something I'm going to use. But at the same time,
Let me ask this because this is very important. So you might not use AI art, but would you buy AI art?
I don't know. I, my thing with AI art is the same thing as I have a problem with digital downloads for video games. Right? Why are you charging me $60 for a digital download of a video game and it's the same price as the physical copy, which had to get printed, then sold to stores and everything else? I think digital copies should be cheaper. And why should I pay you for art that you didn't? You technically created using the text prompts, but
Because this is what I want to do, right? I'll be very honest. If somebody has a completely AI image, I just want to take their AI image and I want to gather it on Kickstarter. Hear me out on this. If I know an image is fully AI'd out, there's no copyright and there's no legal claim to it. So what I
mhm,
would do is I would just print it. I would just be like, hey guys, you really want to fuck people over with this AI shit? I just did an AI project where I took everybody's AI art and all their images and I put it on my own book. Nothing's inside the book. And if you buy
mhm.
this, we're going to send the message back to this person saying, hey, I can legally do this.
Yep, yeah. Adobe, and a lot of different places anyway are offering now AI options, and
We'll call the book Steal. No. People would laugh and I would get criticism, but then I would come on some of these podcasts and I would say, this is the point though. We are now
Mm-hmm.
actually testing the legality of this. We're testing the theory of this. We're actually parodying the whole thing. And if we do $400,000 here, it's not that I did $400,000 of a comic book. It's that I proved the point of how stupid this is.
Yeah.
The fact that you attacked me, you came on your show, I explained the bigger point in the parody. Did you want to rescind your attack? Because honestly, that's what needs to happen. Seriously, we should do it. We should seriously do it. Because the initial amount of hate that we would get would
Mm-hmm.
be off the chain. But then when you start explaining it, you're like, this is actually really smart what you did. Because you just proved the point, and then it becomes a case study.
Yeah. But that's where I land on it. If you're against AI art, I don't want to see you using other people's characters in your homage covers, and that or selling prints at conventions. If you're selling the prints at the conventions, you're no different than somebody quote unquote stealing with AI art. It's not. It's the same thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then I just want your take on the CGC scandal.
Oh God, I wish to God we never had CGC. That stuff is such. It's such a scam. The whole thing on it. Yes, I get it. I'd like to have books protected as well, but so much has been overhyped with them as being the authority on it that
Not said again.
that
That's a
it
lot.
allowed that it doesn't it allowed this scam to happen because so many people made it so that CGC is the only or the main way to say that a book has value, that now people again, if it can be stolen, somebody's going to figure a way to do it. And if they did,
I don't know if I agree with you about the only way a book has value. I mean, I think books have value for a lot of reasons, right? So I actually haven't sent a book to get CGC'd in 3.5 years.
mm-hmm.
A lot of the books, and the reason why is that I just don't want to wait 90 days for a product.
Exactly.
But I've had books that I bought for $20 that I sold for 80, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why the book has value is that it's numbered and it's a limited quantity. So I don't know if I fully agree. I get on a signature basis. I can surrender on a signature basis, authentication. I could also give a fair position that if you're dealing with older books, the higher the grade, the more important it is. So if you're dealing with early, is it bronze? When did the modern era begin? Is modern like late 90s?
I was gonna say in the mid 90s.
So bronze is, I don't know what would be a bronze book. I mean, we all know what silver books are. Those are easy. We all know what gold books are. So like Teen Titans, DC Presents number 26 is a silver book, Silver Age book. So that's the first appearance of Starfire, Raven, and Cyborg. Cool book, awesome book to have. If you have that book, it's a personal book and it's gone up massively in value. I bought mine for 80. It trades for like 260. Yeah.
Nice.
In a 7.5, which is a good grade. It's not a great grade.
See, that's my problem.
I love the Teen Titans. I didn't buy it to resell it. I bought it because I love the Teen Titans.
Of course. And I'm all for it. Like if you can buy plastic cases for your books, that'll keep them pristine. But if you open that book that has a 7.5 grade on it now, does the value go down on that book?
To some degree, yeah. Probably.
Exactly, because we've allowed no, let me finish. We've allowed this company to say that their word is worth so much that now my thing that I love is worth less just because they say it's worth less. And so people have now taken advantage of that.
I don't think though so this is what I think, right? Is that the market determines product. So if you had a beautiful DC Presents 26 that wasn't CGC'd, you might be able to get $150 for it because it's a desirable book. Now, I'm gonna pull out a book that's not offensive at all to prove a point. So I'll use it with a baseball card, right?
Sure.
This baseball card is valuable for two reasons. It's Trey Turner, who's a great player on Philadelphia, the
Okay.
Phillies. It's also number 12 out of 23.
Mm-hmm.
So this card is valuable because it's numbered and it's rare and it's numbered and it's a parallel. And it's a good player. So let's say that it was a shitty player on there, but it was numbered 12 out of 23. It would still have some value, but it might not be a $20 card, but it could be a $5 card. And if it wasn't numbered, it might be a 63 cents card. So the point is that I don't know if CGC determines or Beckett or PSA DNA would determine the value of that, because you could get a card graded that's worth nothing. So I do think certain books, regardless of CGC or not, have value. I do think that it makes it a commodity versus a subjective position. It makes it very objective versus subjective.
But even then, I'm going to have to say it is very subjective because it's this one person's opinion. For instance, if you're trying to get an autograph at a convention, right? And then you have to go get this CGC person to come over, stand there for 3 seconds and say, yeah, I witnessed this. Who the hell are you? Why does you standing there say that it's worth anything? And that's what allowed this scam, quote unquote, to take place. Is people saw that a number on a book.
Mean, you actually know why this came about, right? Did you actually know the history of how this came about?
No,
It actually relates to the United States and the FBI. So what happened in CGC was around before this, a little bit before this, but this really became a bigger issue. So in about 1998 to about 2002, on baseballs, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, and a few others were the most forged autographs. And a bunch of them, and one of the biggest baseball scams ever happened was, I think, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, all these fakes came out. And so there's a guy at the FBI who is the forging guy. And so PSA DNA, Beckett, all these companies came about because all of these fakes came into the market. And we're talking probably about $1 million to $2 million worth of fake baseballs in 2002. Now, that's a lot of money today, right? And so all of these authentication companies came about because of that. And so that's something that I think is also why this came up, because at least this, if it's witnessed by CGC and they witness it, even if you get a shitty grade, there is some authentication purpose to that. So
but
there's a million ways how to authenticate things. So tabling the grading element of it, if it was just saying, hey, we witness this, we're going to put it into a holder and we witness that this autograph is legit, that's a different discussion. So the yellow label, like this right here, is a good example where even tabling the 9.8, CGC witnessed all 6 of these signatures. So let's say there was no grade on this, but it was just witnessed as a signature. That has merit and that has value. Because somebody said, we witnessed this and we are a company that is trustworthy, and that we basically, somebody from our company witnessed these 6 signatures. And that's just a way how to authenticate signatures, forgetting about the grade. So there's merit in that.
So what's the difference then if I took a picture of me with the guy signing it and say, okay, here's the proof that this person signed it? Why do I need them then?
The difference is that they date it and they have a database of
Exactly.
picture.
They made you.
A picture can be doctored. This, on the other hand, it's harder to doctor. It's harder to mess with. I mean, to a degree, because I'll give you an example, right? So you would have to look at the serial number on this. You'd have to copy the barcode as far as signatures. You'd have to get a bunch of stuff done because there is a barcode and a census, and I type in that number on CGC, there's going to be stuff. Now, what would further authenticate it is, and what CGC needs to do, especially with signatures, is they need to take a picture of the book before it gets graded, and they need to put a picture of that book up, and they basically need to say, cool, when you type in that number, that picture comes up. Or they need to have a private database that you can shoot them for $5. Hey, here's a picture of my book. Is this legit? That's how CGC could solve the signature problem. It's going to cost money, but if you're buying a really expensive book, it's just that's the only way this matters. That's true authentication. I mean, are
I,
you there?
I get it. I'm just not. I'm not their biggest fan because, like, how much do they charge you to grade a book?
$30. $30 and for the first signature, and it's $5 for every other signature for a graded book. So you have
But
six signatures. Yeah, what were we saying?
if you're to mail a book to them today,
Yeah.
how much are they going to charge you to grade it?
Blue Label, it's gonna be 20. And then also what happens is that let's say it's a signature book and I'm mailing them for Scott Schneider. He might charge 15 for a signature. But that's separate from CGC, right? That's just somebody charging for a signature, and you might be paying that one way or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at a con, Scott will sign two for free, and then it's $5 a signature.
Oh, really?
Which is also a problem in its own right. After a while, it's like I just paid $90 to get in here. Are you guys really gonna bleed me the fuck dry?
Oh, I've seen worse. I've seen people charging $50 for a picture, like a selfie with them. It's some are just crazy.
My mom says, "Why don't you go to cons?" And I'm like, "Because you need 500 to a G to have a good time at a convention." I'm
Yeah,
sorry. There
it's
gets a point where I don't have any money anymore. I don't make a lot of money after taxes.
mm-hmm.
And I had a really good year, but again, I pumped a lot of money into my business and I'm stabilizing a business. And if I want to fund a Roth IRA, do I go to a con or do I fund my Roth IRA? Like this is called being an adult and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
No, but if I fund my Roth IRA and I'm 31 now and I have 34 years of fully funding a Roth IRA and my Roth gets 12% a year, all of a sudden $200,000 becomes what, 2 million? Or even 100,000 becomes like 1.5 million. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so at the end of the day, do I trade having a good time at a con, funding only 3 grand instead of 6,500 into my Roth? And that's the whole problem I have. It
Yeah.
sucks because am I trading real enjoyment or am I trading a real future and potentially what I could leave to my kids all tax free? So the or do I go in and take a position out of the business and there you go. And that's why I don't want to do cons anymore because they're so fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
$90 for a ticket and then you're gonna bleed me dry. Like it gets old quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
I,
that's
I've had. I'll just say I've had people asking me for autographs already, and I feel always embarrassed about it. But I will never ever even consider charging for something like that because who the hell am I? You know?
it's
And
interesting. I
it
had a
is.
guy Stokes who had nothing and he was charging for signatures, charging $5. And my issue with him is that, dude, I understand that you have nothing else to add to value. You have one book, but you should be signing a bunch of books for free, man.
Exactly.
The goodwill that you should have put out. I understand that you have a poster and that if somebody's buying your book, should be signing it for free because they're buying your fucking book at a con when they're
Mm-hmm.
spending money to get a ticket to come in. Like, I understand what he was doing, and he can do whatever he wants, but there gets a point where it's just like it's a turn off. At least for me, it is. If I
Mm-hmm.
just bought your indie book and it was $10 and I'm taking a spec on you, like what the fuck, bro?
Yeah. No, I did see. I shouldn't. How do I want to say it? I met this group, these two guys. Um, they did a book together. One was the comic book version of somebody else's novel, right? And so I bought the comic book, of course. And the guy goes, if you want to meet the author, hunt him down, find him with this, and he'll sign it for you for free. So he signed it. The artist signed it for me, the one that drew it, and then they made it a contest, to go around and find the author and got him to sign it as well. And I thought that was kind of cool. You know?
Oh, no. If I buy your book and you're charging me for a fucking signature, it's getting
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, if it's getting graded, it's different. But because I understand that then that book gets flipped and they want to, but also that also gets ridiculous as well. And I'm at a point where I'm just like, okay, the free market will figure it out. And you know what? If you guys all want to play the free market, if it's working for you, that's great. If this is the answer, that's great. But that again, I'm at a certain stage where I run my business accordingly. If I do a comic, I will run my position. And look, if I know stuff's getting graded, or better yet, I might say no grading. I might have a sign that says no grading, in which that I might have a deal where I might say, look, I might bring 50 books that I think are really good, and I might label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put a 1 on them and just bring them all to CGC. And I might just say, look, this is what I want to do. And this way I have all 50 of them. And then I might just have the stack at my table.
Now, what are your thoughts on
Iowa?
No. I could anyway. God bless. I can't. Don't get me off on that one. But on like con exclusive, like the only place I'm bringing this cover is to the convention.
I like them. I do. I think it's smart. I think it's smart.
I thought so too, and I just wanted to make sure that, because I thought about doing the same thing once I'm able to finally get back to conventions, is giving them something that you may not get somewhere else. I just thought that was kind of cool. But then I don't. But then I have to look at it and say, well, now will Kickstarter people get upset because they didn't get the opportunity to grab this? I don't know. But
look, I I buy print runs out. I don't really care. I'm at a stage where, look, I'm going to be speaking to a lot of people. I'm going to say, look, I like your book. What do you got? If you got a 15 print run, I have X amount of money to do this. How do you want to run this? And this is what people don't understand. I've had people try to sell me for like $900 a 50 print run, and they don't understand that $900 for a 50 print run, even if it's a naughty and nice version 25, $900 for 50 comics is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And I understand you're trying to make money. I understand your artist is expensive, but I can't afford $900. I mean, printing for 50 comics should not mean. Well, I mean, technically speaking, actually, if you hire Gregbo, right? If Gregbo is like 600 and it costs $3 a book, which is for 50 comics, so that's it should be about $800. It should be, it should be about $800. So 900 grand is too expensive.
Right.
I need to be in a position where my cost is X and it's Y because I don't have the ability to move 50 bucks. And I like buying 15 print hollow foils out from Mount Olympus, and I don't mind buying 15 hollow foil print runs out. And I can tell everybody what I pay for those. I pay $465.
Yeah.
It's 15 comics that are hollow foils that trade for $30 a pop.
Nice.
And again, I'm selling those things for what, like $65, $70. So there you go. But I digress. We are far away from Kansas.
It's not always a bad thing.
But yeah, so I want to get back to your graphic novel. Now that we've ruined my career and yours, obviously you're fully funded, and I think that's a mistake people also make. This is the point I want to end on. I think is that sometimes you need to figure out where the sweet spot is, because you don't want to say I need $10,000, but I'm only going to ask for 8. Because if you get 8, but you don't get 10, you're still down 2. But you also don't want to ask for 10 and get to 9. Because I don't know how you feel about this, but it's always better to be $1,000 short in your personal bank account, but got $9,000
Yeah.
and then figure out how to get the extra 10 or extra 1,000 than to be at 9,000 and missed your goal by 1,000 and still have to figure out how you're going to fund your fucking book.
Hmm.
And so I don't know how you feel. So because you set your goal at 500.
Yeah, yeah. Because as we've talked about before, again offline, use one project to help pay for the others, right? And I don't mean that as in fund a current project to pay for a past one. I mean the other projects that you make should be selling well enough that you can put your money back into your business and fund future things. And that's what I'm doing with these books. These books honestly are just a passion project for me. They don't make me a ton of money, but I just love doing it. I really do. It's the board games, it's the RPGs that's where the money is. So and they allow me to do stuff like this and make these. And I swear to God in heaven, um, that if I had the funds, I would give these away. You know, I'd make them for free because I just like it that much. And yeah, anyway, I feel like Joe Biden there for a second. Well, anyway, come on, man.
Corn Pop. Corn
Yeah,
Pop.
Corn Pop was a bad dude. He was in Slaughterville at the.
Me and Corn Pop go way back. It's Slaughterville.
Yeah, I should now. Now I have to put Corn Pop in here somewhere.
You should have. Oh man! Next time you do one of these, I should buy the card falling off an airplane.
Falling up an airplane. Yeah.
So many things.
Well,
We're gonna get so canceled.
that's okay. It's not my first.
Oh
Okay.
man, nobody's gonna do anything to me. Nobody even watches my show anyway. It's all good.
I watch it.
See, nobody watches, and then I tell everybody what to do and make money, and then I get made fun of for saying buy Netflix, guys. They're like, no, Andrew, you're wrong. I'm like, fine, buy Coca-Cola. No, Andrew, you're wrong. Buy Bitcoin. No, Andrew, you're wrong. Guys, buy Ethereum. It's 2 cents. You're wrong, Andrew. It's gonna go down to 1. It's like, and then all this shit goes up, and I'm like, what did I say, everybody? What did I say? Do you really think I'm telling you to buy something that I don't own? And that's my problem with everybody in comics is that you think I'm telling you to do something because I don't have a stake in it. Are you out of your fucking mind? I don't tell anybody to do anything that I haven't done. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. I do tell people that they should get married and get pregnant, and I haven't done either one of those. So technically,
Yeah.
yeah. So terrible. But anyway, now that I ruined your career, I feel much better about myself.
That's what we're here for.
I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. Where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, disturb you, get you canceled,
Yeah.
get you rehired and then fired again, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, if you want to treat me like Kurt Angle, meet me over at Laughing Rogue on Facebook or on YouTube. I'm also on Big Sexy Outdoors every Monday night. We do an outdoors show, again, as politically incorrect as possible. And I always have some project coming out. I think I have another 2 or 3 games this year that are coming out, as well as another graphic novel, of course, for later in the year. But yeah, we're always here, or we're going to hang out here sometimes,
Yeah, no. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you supporting the show because you did that too, and that's always helpful. I think we're $20 away from 66% of season 5 being fully
Nice.
funded. And another technically, once we get another $20, we will have all of season 5 funded and a good chunk of season 6 as well. So the more money I have, the better off I'm going to be. So keep that in mind, everybody. It's very helpful. I don't make much money from this show, but the money I do make covers the expenses, and every dollar helps. Every dollar helps. And I buy me a coffee. I have Cash App. I have PayPal. You name it. And I got a lot of packages where you could buy a spot if you need it because I do get booked up really quickly. Or conversely, if you're not interested in buying spots, I do offer live reads for a lot of stuff, as well as I can sell the backdrop. I can sell spots on my TikToks, whatever you want. We could figure something out. And let's just say in 90 days, I'm gonna have a really good idea what I pull in. And I have an idea what that number is going to be, and it's a nice number. So anyway, that's something that I got, and my social media is Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics collectibles on eBay. And yeah, so anything Pop Anime Comics is mine. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And again, if you want to work with me, just shoot me a message on any of those platforms. Say, hey, so you're on this, really interested in potentially working with you or advertising, and we can figure something out. So that's everything that I got going on, and hopefully we will catch everybody on the flip side tomorrow. Peace.